All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Wasina.
I'm Caitlin O'Connell.
And I'm Kristy Moody.
We're super excited to be with you guys today. We're going to be talking about the Maine Trykers and the work we've done to support community mobility and participation through adaptive cycling. So at the conclusion of this session, some of the objectives that we aim to reach with you all include first, identifying the impacts of adaptive cycling for children with disabilities in regards to not only physical, but also social and psychological health and well-being, and also recognizing the value of an interprofessional approach in working with these families of children with disabilities to provide adaptive recreational opportunities. So to do this, I'm going to start by talking broadly about the Maine Lend program, with which we are all affiliated with, and how it intersects with AMBUCS, which is the organization we've worked with to provide adaptive cycling opportunities. Then Caitlin is going to talk with you all about the research behind wheeled mobility as it relates to individuals with disabilities. And Kristy will wrap things up by sharing some of our personal experiences with providing adaptive recreational opportunities through this program. So, Maine Lend stands for Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental Disabilities. And this program is a federally funded project which seeks to expand resources for individuals with neurodevelopmental disabilities and their families. And it does that by training healthcare providers, parents, and also educators. So each Lend trainee goes through a 9-month program which focuses on early identification and timely diagnosis, provision of effective interventions, and interdisciplinary approaches to both clinical and community services. So AMBUCS, on the other hand, is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to helping individuals with disabilities achieve greater mobility and independence. So they partner with physical, occupational, and speech therapists to provide adaptive tricycles, which they call Trikes, to both children and adults with mobility limitations. So this organization has grown considerably since it got its start in 1922. Right now it has over 160 chapters and 5,000 members nationwide, and these members fundraise and give away over 3,500 Trikes per year. So it's a really wonderful organization, and they have a really wide outreach. So you may be wondering how this is connected. So Lend and AMBUCS are a partnership because our state AMBUCS chapter, which is called the Maine Trykers, was established by faculty from the Maine Lend program, and they therefore work very closely together. And the Maine Lend uses this connection as a linkage to mobility resources for families of children with neurodevelopmental disabilities. And both trainees and faculty are involved in recruitment, fitting, assembling, and delivering Trikes to these children in the community. And the Lend program has also recently become involved in creating sustainability measures to streamline the fitting process. And we hope to promote the longevity of the program and attempt to reduce the cost of Trikes for these families in the future.
Great, thanks, Emily. This next section, we're going to dig into a bit of the research and evidence behind adapted wheeled mobility. So this will be done in the format of a critically appraised topic. And first, to set the stage, a little bit of background. Participation in play and leisure occupations for children is really critical for acquiring new skills, for making sense of their contextual surroundings, learning about their strengths and abilities, forming friendships, and gaining social competence. So active participation in play and leisure really supports development in a biopsychosocial way, and contributes to physical and mental health and overall quality of life. Individuals with disabilities are at risk for decreased participation. So adaptive recreation is one avenue to address those barriers and provide opportunities for children with disabilities to be actively participated in play and leisure occupations in order to support and promote their physical, mental health and well-being. So before we dive into some of the specific studies, just want to also provide some context that we all know as occupational therapy practitioners that the occupational experience is one that involves so many complex and dynamic moving pieces and is such an individualized experience for each person between the environment, the person, the occupation. They're all very interconnected and complex. And for that reason, it's often challenging for higher levels of evidence studies, such as randomized control trials, where that standardization across participants is really key. It's challenging for those to capture the deep interconnectedness of those relationships and how they how participating in occupation is unique to each experience. So the studies that I'm about to discuss in the following slides are levels 3, 4, and 5. And the topic that was the question that we used to delve into these were, what are the biopsychosocial impacts of adaptive cycling on children with neurodevelopmental disabilities? So these first 3 studies are all level 3 evidence, and they all demonstrated improved functional performance and participation with adapted wheeled recreational devices. So this first one over here, Bosick et al., was a pre-post study done with children with cerebral palsy, and it was a home-based Trike program. You'll notice that some of these studies have adaptive recreation wheeled mobility used in the home setting, in the community setting, in a therapy clinic setting. So this particular one was a home-based program for at least a minimum of 30 minutes 3 times per week for 8 weeks. And the outcomes noted here were improved range of motion, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, and visual motor integration. The next study over involved children with unilateral neglect. And this Trike intervention was done in a therapy setting 3 times a week for 9 weeks. And the results here suggested increased distance, duration, and number of steps taken, and also some really interesting elements of the psychosocial impacts. So increased independence in home activities in general, and also a desire to explore other challenging occupations. So in this case, learning to ride an adaptive tricycle was an opportunity that opened the door even wider to other play and leisure explorations that might have been seen as too challenging prior to. So there were reports of children getting involved with swimming and horseback riding, and kind of that confidence builder, self-efficacy builder of, I can do this, and what else can I do? That was a cool element of that one. And the final one on this slide was a study, a multi-probe across participant study involving children with cerebral palsy, and it involved adaptive scooter boards, and the outcomes here were improved engagement in play participation with their peers. In the next level of evidence, there are 2 level 4 studies that both supported positive psychosocial impacts. So this first study was a qualitative study that involved both child and caregiver interviews, and then a thematic analysis was done. And the themes to emerge from following the adaptive cycling program were increased social participation, both in the community and school, enjoyment and fun. And this particular study was part of a larger study that had both a qualitative and a quantitative part. And the quantitative part suggested increased muscle length and strength as an additional outcome for this cycling program. And finally, this McDonald et al. Study involved children on the autism spectrum. And this was a little different in that it was a program that was geared towards teaching children to ride a two-wheeled bicycle. So not an adaptive tricycle, but an adaptive program geared towards children with autism to learn to ride a two-wheel bicycle. And the outcomes here were increased social skill generalization and improved peer and family relationships. And finally, this level 5 evidence study highlighted increased individual and family activity levels. So this study involved children and adults spanning from 22 months to 49 years old. And this particular population lived in an area that was that did not have easy access to get to and from therapy appointments. So the idea was to start a adaptive tricycle program within the home setting to work towards those therapeutic aims, but with minimizing the need to navigate transportation to and from therapy appointments. So in this case, the caregiver reports noted that there was increased activity among both the individual with disabilities and the family as a whole. So having this piece of adaptive recreation equipment really enhanced and increased the family's overall physical activity. So the bottom lines here, there's growing evidence in support of adaptive cycling. As I mentioned before, the level 3, level 4, level 5, these studies are showing positive results. Also noted here, they are limited in their sample size, but the base is kind of growing and suggesting positive outcomes. And what's also highlighted in the literature is the versatility of adaptive cycling, as it can be used as an intervention or an occupational possibility for individuals and families to explore as an occupation. So in that way, it can be a means or an ends, and can reduce, it's an inclusive approach. It's very developmentally appropriate to learn to ride a bike, and your peers are riding a bike. So being on that same level and being able to share in a shared experience with typically developing peers is one positive element of using adaptive cycling. And yeah, I will transition over to Kristy.
Great, thank you, Caitlin. So I'm going to be talking about kind of our own experiences with the Maine Trykers, as well as our family's perspective, as that's very important in understanding the outcomes of these bikes. So kind of over the 2 years of Maine Trykers, the Maine chapter has collaborated with 4 families to produce 4 bikes. The pictures that you've seen throughout our slides are some of the kids who have received some of these bikes over these 2 years. As you've seen, these families have come from a variety of different backgrounds. The children have ranged in diagnoses from cerebral palsy to spinal bifida, and other neurodevelopmental disorders. Each one of these families' needs are very individualized, and we kind of tailor them to the family's specific needs. And that's where the interprofessional team comes into play. So one of these families who received an AMBUX bike was kind enough to answer some of our questions to gain a better understanding of their perspective, which is so incredibly important and crucial to understanding these outcomes. So the family was nice enough to grant us permission to use their child's name in their photos and videos, which is lovely. So this is Tess. She is a teenager who was given a bike back in December. As you'll see in this video we'll play, Tess is a very happy girl. She loves Disney, spending time with her family, and she also gives a lot of what her mom describes as sass to everyone. She's very sassy. Tess was diagnosed at an early age with a neurodevelopmental disorder that limits her speech and movement. Tess presents with difficulties with fine and gross motor coordination, abnormal tone, and has seizures, which all impact or alter her ability to participate in occupation. Tess utilizes a wheelchair to mobilize and a talker to communicate. Tess comes from a very loving and supportive family, and when Tess's mom was made aware of the AMBUX Trikes, she was very interested in getting one for Tess. Tess had previously used one in her OT and PT sessions at school, but mom was very interested in getting one for home to utilize with the family. So Tess's mother, Joanna, she started the process of getting Tess her bike. And soon after, the interprofessional team collaborated, both as a team and with the family, to deliver and assemble the bike to Tess in December. Tess's specific bike, as you can see in these pictures and you'll see in the video, includes a harness strap for postural support, a custom seat, lateral supports on the side, and she also has that adaptive steering wheel in the front. So let's take a look at this video of Tess.
Pedal, Kathy, pedal, pedal, pedal.
Awesome. So as you can see, Tess was pedaling her bike. She was listening to music. That's one of her motivations to do some of these activities. She also has some assistance from her father. As you can see, he was kind of pushing her along to kind of keep the momentum of her moving. Joanna reported that Tess rides her bike about once a week for 20 to 30 minutes. So when speaking with Joanna about Tess and the adapted bike, we have some recording of some things that she said, just talking about the outcomes that she has noticed. So we'll listen to that now.
Hang on. Let's see if maybe if we reload this, it will let us hear it.
Technical difficulties.
Let's see.
It was just easy.
Perfect.
Simple, like one of the more simple things I've had to do with Tess, and that says a lot because we've had to do a lot with Tess, and nothing is ever. Equipment's never easy. Never easy, and this was easy. It was nice. For Tess, I noticed that she likes to go outside now if it's on the bike. Tess is a girl, I don't know if you guys remember me saying this, Tess hated the outside. Hates it, does not like to be outside. Does not like the sun, does not like the wind, does not like outside. But on the bike, she likes it. Like we can get her outside now on the bike and she's happy to be outside. And I think she feels sort of like proud of herself. And I think it gives her kind of confidence. And I think also, honestly, even though the bike is tailored to a special needs person, it's still a bike ultimately. And she's on something that she knows other people, everybody can ride a bike, kind of. You know what I mean? But she never could prior to this. So she's doing something that everybody does. And so for her to just sit there on that bike and be pedaling, and I don't know, I think she just feels like freer or something. I mean, I can't imagine being sort of stuck in a chair all the time, and your every movement's dependent on somebody, and then you get in on a bike, and it must feel so, I compare it to how she probably felt in the pool. It's more free, more, I think she has independence on it, I really do. Even though she's getting help, I think she feels independent. And that for Tessie is big, because she does not get much independence. I hate to use the word normal because it sounds so wrong, but I think she's just like, I'm a normal kid. I'm on a bike. I'm outside. Nobody's looking at my wheelchair. Nobody, you know? And I think for that reason alone, it was huge. I mean, it's really amazing to watch her on the bike.
Awesome. Yeah, so as an OT myself, kind of hearing a family member report such amazing outcomes, it just makes me so happy and so proud. So to kind of sum up Joanna's thoughts, she indicated that the most significant outcomes that she observed were Tessa's social and mental well-being. So later on, Joanna also added, quote, "When Tessa's out on her bike, other kids will comment on her bike saying how cool it is, when usually people in the public would not interact or socially engage with Tess specifically." So it's speaking to that psychosocial piece that's very important. Also, it's worthy to note that physically, Tess has not shown any significant outcomes from the bike. However, Joanna did report that after riding, Tess is very exhausted. So kind of looking at that biopsychosocial piece that Caitlin talked about before, and just some of the outcomes that we have noticed and that Joanna also noticed. So we thank Joanna so much for offering her perspective and her family insight. So just some final thoughts to sum up our presentation, and just some words that kind of stick out to me when talking with Joanna or just thinking about AMBUC's bikes in general. Our first, individualized. All these bikes are tailored and individualized to each child's and family's needs, as we saw with Tess and her adaptations to her bike. The biopsychosocial evidence that we see in the research, but also in just the outcomes that we have noticed personally. Participation, as we saw with Tess, and just her increase in participation and just going outside and enjoying the weather and participating in a play and leisure activity. Motivation, this is a motivator for Tess to get outside and for other kids as well. A means and or an end. Caitlin kind of touched upon this as well, but these bikes can be a goal of just riding a bike, or these bikes could be a means to accomplish other goals like physical gains or social gains. Collaboration, we collaborate both as therapists and as a team, but we also collaborate with the families and together, and that's super important to getting these bikes for these kids. Independence and confidence, both of those Joanna talked about with Tess, and things that we have seen as well with some of our other kiddos. So here in Maine, we are very lucky to have our own AMBUC's chapter, and with the help of the Maine Lend program, it's been both a learning opportunity for us as students and practitioners, but it's also been a great opportunity for kids with disabilities to be able to participate and actively engage in the occupation of play and leisure through a bike. While this option may not work for every child, it is a great adaptive option for kids. So to learn more about this program or for a referral consult, please contact Kate Loukas at une.edu for more information. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation and learning more about Ambuc's Trikers and about adaptive cycling. Listed below are all of our references. Feel free to scan through these and reach out with any questions. Thank you so much.